The message arrived at 23:47 ship time, a soft chime breaking through the hum of the Meridian's engines. Captain Marcus Kane was halfway through his third cup of synthetic coffee when the communication panel lit up with an incoming transmission from the research station on Kepler 442c. The face that appeared on his screen was one he hadn't expected to see again. Dr. Elena Vasquez looked tired, her usually pristine lab coat wrinkled, dark circles under her eyes that spoke of too many sleepless nights. But it was the tremor in her voice that made Marcus set down his cup and pay attention. "Marcus," she said, glancing over her shoulder before continuing. "I need you to come to the station. Tonight. Don't bring anyone else, and don't log this transmission." The connection cut before he could respond. Marcus stared at the blank screen for a long moment. Elena wasn't the type to make cryptic requests or ask for favors. She was methodical, precise, the kind of scientist who documented everything and followed protocols to the letter. They'd worked together on 3 previous missions, and he'd never seen her rattled. The Meridian was currently docked at the orbital platform above Kepler 442c, undergoing routine maintenance before their next supply run to the outer colonies. The research station was a 12-hour shuttle flight to the planet's surface, nestled in the northern hemisphere where the climate was most Earth-like. Against his better judgment, Marcus found himself preparing a shuttle for departure. He told his crew he was making an unscheduled inspection of the research facility, a white lie that sat uncomfortably in his stomach. In 15 years of commanding freight vessels, he'd never deviated from mission parameters without proper authorization. The descent through Kepler 442c's atmosphere was routine until the shuttle's sensors picked up something unexpected. Energy readings from the research station were off the charts, fluctuating in patterns that made no sense. The facility was supposed to be running on minimal power, with only a skeleton crew maintaining the xenobiology labs. As the shuttle approached the landing pad, Marcus could see that something was very wrong. The station's exterior lights were flickering in rapid sequences, and several sections of the complex appeared to be completely dark. Emergency backup systems seemed to be the only thing keeping the place operational. Elena was waiting for him at the airlock, but she wasn't alone. Behind her stood 3 figures that made Marcus's hand instinctively move toward his sidearm. They were tall, easily 7 feet, with elongated limbs and skin that seemed to shimmer between different shades of blue and green. Their faces were almost human, but the proportions were all wrong: eyes too large, mouths too wide, with an intelligence behind their gaze that was unmistakably alien. "Marcus," Elena said as he stepped through the airlock, "I'd like you to meet the Kythera. They've been here for 6 days." The lead alien stepped forward, its movements fluid and graceful despite its imposing size. When it spoke, its voice resonated with harmonic undertones that seemed to vibrate through Marcus's bones. "Captain Kane," it said, "we have been waiting for your arrival." Dr. Vasquez spoke truthfully when she said you could be trusted. Marcus looked between Elena and the aliens, his mind racing. "Elena, what the hell is going on here? Where's the rest of your team?" "They're safe," she assured him quickly. "I sent them to the secondary facility on the other continent." "Marcus, the Kythera aren't here as conquerors or invaders. They're refugees." The alien that had spoken earlier made a sound that might have been laughter, but there was no humor in it. "Refugees is perhaps too gentle a term, Captain. We are the last of our kind, fleeing from something that your species cannot yet comprehend." Elena moved closer to Marcus, her voice dropping to a whisper. "They've been running for over 200 years. Their homeworld was destroyed by something they call the Devourers. Every planet they've tried to settle, every species they've encountered, has been consumed. And now they're here," Marcus said, the implications hitting him like a freight hauler at full thrust. "Now we are here," the Kythera confirmed. "And the Devourers are approximately 18 months behind us." The research station's main laboratory had been transformed into what could only be described as a war room. Holographic displays showed star charts spanning dozens of systems, with red markers indicating planets that had gone dark over the past 2 centuries. The pattern was clear and terrifying, a systematic destruction moving through the galaxy like a plague. Elena led Marcus to a central console where a Kythera technician was interfacing directly with the station's computers. The alien's fingers moved across the controls with impossible speed, streams of data flowing across multiple screens simultaneously. They've been sharing their technology with me, Elena explained. Marcus, what they know about physics, about spacetime manipulation, about energy conversion, it's centuries ahead of anything we've developed. They could revolutionize human civilization. If there's still a civilization left to revolutionize, the lead Kithara added grimly. Captain Kane, your species possesses something that we have encountered in no other race across the galaxy. Something that may be the key to stopping the Devourers. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. What exactly are these Devourers? The alien's large eyes seemed to focus on something beyond the walls of the station. They are not biological in the traditional sense, nor are they purely mechanical. They exist in the spaces between matter and energy, consuming both with equal efficiency. They convert entire worlds into raw materials for their expansion, leaving nothing behind but empty space and cosmic dust. A new voice joined the conversation, and Marcus turned to see another Kithara approaching. This one was smaller than the others, with skin that pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. Captain, it said, we have detected 3 of your naval vessels approaching this system. They will arrive within 6 hours. Elena's face went pale. You didn't tell them you were coming here, did you? Marcus shook his head. I followed protocol and filed a flight plan, but I listed it as a routine inspection. How did they know to send 3 ships? Because, the lead Kithara said quietly, the Devourers have scouts. Entities that can influence organic minds across vast distances. If your military is responding with force, it means they have already been compromised. The weight of the situation began to settle on Marcus's shoulders. He was a freight captain, trained to transport goods and maintain supply lines, not to make decisions that could affect the fate of humanity. But, looking at Elena's desperate expression and the resigned acceptance in the alien's eyes, he realized the choice had been taken away from him. What do you need from me? He asked. Your ship, Elena said. The Meridian has the cargo capacity to carry their entire population off-world. There are only 47 Kithara left, and they need to reach a safe system before the naval ships arrive. And if I refuse? The lead Kithara's expression remained neutral. Then, we will surrender ourselves to your military, and, in 18 months, your species will join the countless others that the Devourers have claimed. Marcus walked to the observation window and looked out at the alien landscape of Kepler 442c. In the distance, the planet's twin moons hung in the sky like watchful eyes. He thought about his crew, about the oath he'd taken to protect human interests, about the career that would certainly be over if he followed through with what Elena was asking. He also thought about the red markers on the star chart, each one representing an entire civilization that had been snuffed out of existence. There's something else, Elena said softly, moving to stand beside him. They've offered to teach us how to fight back. Their technology, combined with human innovation and our unique neural structure, it might be enough to stop the Devourers before they reach Earth. Unique neural structure? Humans process fear differently than any other species they've encountered, she explained. Instead of being paralyzed by it, we use it as fuel. We fight harder when we're terrified, think more creatively when we're desperate. The Kithara have been studying human psychology through our deep space transmissions for decades. They believe we might be the first species capable of standing against the Devourers and winning. Marcus turned back to the assembled aliens, noting how they watched him with a mixture of hope and resignation. These beings had witnessed the destruction of their entire civilization, had fled across the galaxy for 2 centuries, and now their survival depended on the decision of one human freight captain. If I do this, he said, if I transport you off-world, where exactly are we going? There is a system at the edge of your galaxy's spiral arm, the lead Kithara replied. Remote, with planets rich in the materials we need to construct defenses. From there, we can begin preparing for the Devourer's arrival. And, my crew? They can return to human space, or they can join us in preparing for the war that is coming whether your species acknowledges it or not. Elena placed a hand on Marcus's arm. I'm going with them. My research here, everything I've learned from the Kithara, it's too important to abandon. But, Marcus, you have to make this choice freely. If the Devourers have already influenced the naval command structure, then, helping us might be considered treason. Before Marcus could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the station. The Kythera technician at the central console looked up from its displays, its bioluminescent patterns pulsing rapidly. "Captain," it announced, "your naval vessels have changed course. They are no longer approaching at standard patrol speed. Their weapons systems are active, and they will be within firing range in 4 hours and 17 minutes. Marcus felt his stomach drop. Naval protocol dictated that weapons only went active in response to confirmed threats or under direct orders from Fleet Command. If Admiral Chen's task force was approaching with hostile intent, it meant the situation had escalated far beyond a simple first contact scenario. "They're not coming to investigate," he realized aloud. "They're coming to eliminate a potential threat." The lead Kythera's expression grew even more somber. "The Devourer's influence spreads like an infection through military command structures. Your admirals likely believe they are protecting humanity by destroying us, not realizing they are ensuring humanity's eventual destruction." Elena grabbed Marcus's arm more tightly. "We have to leave now. If we wait any longer, they'll detect the Meridian's departure and intercept us before we can reach jump coordinates." Marcus looked around the laboratory one more time, at the star chart showing the wake of destruction across the galaxy, at the desperate faces of the last survivors of an ancient civilization, at the woman who had risked everything to give humanity a fighting chance. "All right," he said, the words feeling like they were sealing his fate. "We leave in 30 minutes. But, Elena, if this goes wrong, if we're making the biggest mistake in human history, then, at least we'll have tried," she replied. "And, sometimes that's all anyone can do." As they began the hurried preparations for evacuation, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that answering Elena's simple request would change everything, not just for him, but for the entire human race. The only question now was whether the change would lead to salvation or damnation. The evacuation proceeded with military precision, despite the fact that they were technically committing an act of rebellion against human naval command. Marcus had sent a coded message to his crew aboard the Meridian, using old freight runner signals that predated modern military encryption. Within 20 minutes, his ship had undocked from the orbital platform and was descending through the atmosphere. Chief Engineer Sarah Chen was the first to express concerns when she saw the Kythera boarding their vessel. Marcus had worked with Sarah for 8 years, and he'd never seen her speechless before. The aliens moved their few possessions with remarkable efficiency, each carrying what appeared to be crystalline storage devices and organic-looking equipment that seemed to pulse with its own internal light. "Captain," Sarah whispered as she pulled Marcus aside in the cargo bay, "what have you gotten us into?" "Something bigger than freight runs and supply contracts," Marcus replied, watching Elena help the Kythera technicians interface their equipment with the Meridian systems. "Sarah, I need you to trust me on this. What I'm about to tell you is going to sound insane." He explained everything: the Devourers, the 2-century flight across the galaxy, the approaching naval task force that might already be compromised by alien influence. Sarah's expression shifted from disbelief to horror to grim acceptance as the pieces fell into place. "So we're either saving humanity or committing the worst act of treason in human history," she summarized. "That's about the size of it." "Well," Sarah said with a dry laugh, "at least it won't be boring." The Meridian lifted off from Kepler 442c just as the first naval vessels appeared on the edge of the sensor grid. The lead Kythera, who had introduced himself as Zeph Connor, stood in the ship's bridge alongside Marcus and his small crew. The alien's presence was both reassuring and unsettling, his vast knowledge of galactic affairs balanced against the terrible implications of what that knowledge meant for humanity. "Captain," Navigator Lou announced from his station, "I'm showing 3 Confederation destroyers on intercept course. They'll be in weapons range in 12 minutes. Can we reach jump coordinates before then?" Marcus asked. "Not unless we push the engines beyond safe parameters." Zeph Connor stepped forward, his large eyes reflecting the glow from the navigation displays. "Captain Kane, with your permission, our technicians can enhance your engine output by 40% without damaging your systems." Marcus hesitated. Allowing aliens to modify human technology went against every regulation in the book, but the book hadn't accounted for galaxy-ending threats and potentially compromised naval commands. "Do it," he ordered. 2 Kythera technicians appeared on the bridge within minutes, their movements graceful despite their size. They approached the engineering console with reverence, their elongated fingers dancing across the controls with impossible precision. The ship's engines, which had been humming at their standard frequency, suddenly surged with power that Marcus could feel through the deck plates. Engine output at 139%, Sarah reported from the engine room, her voice tinged with amazement. I don't know what they did, but our power systems are more efficient than they've ever been. Jump coordinates locked in, Lou announced. We can initiate jump sequence in 4 minutes. On the main screen, the 3 Confederation destroyers were closing fast. Marcus recognized the Wellington, Admiral Chen's flagship, leading the formation. He'd served under Chen briefly early in his career and had always respected the man's tactical brilliance. The thought that Chen might be under alien influence was almost as disturbing as the threat of the Devourers themselves. Incoming transmission, Communications Officer Torres reported. It's Admiral Chen, sir. Put him through. Admiral Chen's weathered face appeared on the main screen, his expression stern and uncompromising. Captain Kane, you will immediately halt your vessel and surrender the alien entities you have illegally removed from the research station. This is not a request. Marcus looked at Zefkanor, whose expression remained calm despite the threat. The alien gave an almost imperceptible nod. Admiral, Marcus replied, I cannot comply with that order. The entities aboard my ship are refugees seeking sanctuary from an existential threat to all organic life in this galaxy. Chen's eyes narrowed. Captain, you have 60 seconds to comply before I am authorized to use force. Those creatures are a contamination risk that cannot be allowed to spread to human population centers. Contamination risk? Marcus felt anger flaring in his chest. Admiral, these beings have technology that could revolutionize human civilization. They're offering to help us prepare for a threat that could destroy our entire species. I will not debate alien propaganda with a freight captain who has clearly been compromised, Chen snapped. 30 seconds, Kane. The connection cut, and Marcus found himself facing the hardest decision of his life. He could surrender now, trust that the Confederation's xenobiology experts would eventually recognize the truth about the Kithara and the Devourer threat. Or he could commit to a course of action that would make him and his crew fugitives from human law. Jump sequence ready, Lou announced quietly. Marcus looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. Sarah at the engineering station, her hands steady despite the magnitude of what they were facing. Torres at communications, young and idealistic enough to believe that doing the right thing mattered more than following orders. Lou at navigation, methodical and precise, trusting Marcus's judgment even when it led them into the unknown. Execute jump, Marcus ordered. The Meridian disappeared from normal space just as the first particle beams from the Confederation destroyers reached their previous position. The jump took them to the edge of the Tau Ceti system, a waypoint that Zefkanor had calculated would be beyond the range of immediate naval pursuit. As the ship dropped out of hyperspace, Marcus found himself looking at a star system that few humans had ever visited, remote, unremarkable, and perfect for what they needed to accomplish. Captain, Elena said as she joined them on the bridge, Zefkanor wants to show you something. The Kithara leader activated a holographic display that filled the center of the bridge. What appeared was a three-dimensional map of the galaxy, with thousands of red markers indicating dead systems. This is the extent of Devourer expansion over the past 2,000 years, Zefkanor explained. Each marker represents a system where all organic and technological life has been consumed. The pattern of their advance suggests they will reach human space within 18 months. Marcus studied the map, noting how the destruction seemed to follow major hyperspace routes and trade corridors. They're targeting civilizations specifically. Yes. The Devourers require complex matter and energy patterns to fuel their expansion. Barren worlds and uninhabited systems provide insufficient resources. They seek out advanced civilizations, consume their technology and biological matter, then use that material to create more of themselves. Elena pointed to a cluster of systems near the galaxy's edge. The Kithara have identified several worlds in this region that could serve as staging areas for a defensive preparation. Rich in rare minerals, strategically positioned, and far enough from major population centers to avoid immediate detection. You're talking about establishing a base of operations outside Confederation space, Marcus realized. We are talking about survival, Zefkanor corrected gently. Captain Kane, your military leaders are already compromised by Devourer influence. They will not listen to warnings about the coming threat, and they will actively work to prevent any preparation that might interfere with the Devourer's plans. Sarah joined the group around the holographic display. How exactly do these Devourers influence people? Some kind of telepathic control? More subtle than that, Elena answered. They project what the Kithara call consensus reality distortions. People under their influence don't realize they're being controlled. They simply find themselves making decisions that seem logical and justified, but which ultimately serve the Devourer's purposes. Like sending a task force to destroy potential allies instead of investigating their claims, Marcus said grimly. Precisely. Torres looked up from her station. Captain, I'm detecting multiple ships jumping into the system. Confederation signatures, but they're coming from different vectors. Marcus felt his heart sink. How many? 12 ships, sir. And they're not all destroyers. I'm reading at least 2 dreadnoughts in the formation. The main screen displayed the tactical situation, and Marcus immediately recognized the trap they had walked into. The Confederation fleet had anticipated their destination, arriving from multiple jump points to create an inescapable formation. Admiral Chen had outmaneuvered them completely. How is this possible? Elena asked. We used Kithara jump calculations. There's no way they could have predicted our destination. Zefkanor's skin pattern shifted to darker hues, a sign of distress that Marcus was beginning to recognize. Unless the Devourer influence in your military command is more extensive than we calculated. Captain, they are not simply trying to prevent our escape. They are trying to capture our technology intact. Incoming transmission from all Confederation vessels, Torres announced. It's Admiral Chen again. Chen's image appeared on the screen, but something was different about his expression. His eyes seemed to reflect light in an unusual way, and there was a quality to his voice that Marcus couldn't quite identify. Captain Kane, Chen said, you have performed admirably in bringing the alien technology to a location where it can be properly secured. Please prepare for boarding and transfer of all alien personnel and equipment to Confederation custody. Marcus felt ice forming in his veins. Admiral, you speak as if this was planned. In a sense, it was. The alien entities represent both a threat and an opportunity. Their technology will be invaluable in preparing humanity for the challenges ahead. Elena grabbed Marcus's arm. He's been compromised. Listen to how he's talking, that's not natural speech patterns. Zefkanor stepped closer to the communication panel. Admiral Chen, I am Zefkanor of the Kithara. I offer myself and my people for immediate surrender if you will allow Captain Kane and his crew to return to human space unharmed. Chen's altered gaze focused on the alien with predatory intensity. That will not be necessary. All parties will be taken into custody for proper evaluation. The connection ended, and Marcus realized they were facing something far worse than military justice. The Confederation fleet began moving into position, their formation designed to prevent any possibility of escape. Captain, Liu reported, they're powering up tractor beam projectors. In about 3 minutes, we won't be able to move. Marcus turned to Zefkanor, is there anything your people can do? Some kind of defensive system? We are scientists and refugees, not warriors. However, the alien paused, his large eyes reflecting some internal calculation. There is one possibility, but it would require a level of trust that your species has never granted to an alien intelligence. What kind of trust? Captain Kane, human neural architecture possesses unique properties that our technology can interface with directly. If you would allow a temporary neural link, I could share our navigation and tactical knowledge with you directly. You would be able to pilot this vessel with capabilities far beyond human limitations. Elena's face went pale. Marcus, they're talking about direct brain interface with alien technology. We have no idea what the long-term effects might be. The long-term effects of refusing are simple, Zefkanor said quietly. The Devourers will arrive in 18 months, and humanity will be unprepared. Marcus looked at the tactical display showing the tightening Confederation formation, then, at his crew who were depending on his leadership, then, at the 47 Kithara refugees who represented the last hope for multiple civilizations. If I do this, he said, if I let you link with my mind, what exactly am I agreeing to? You would become something new, Sefkanor admitted. Not human, not Kithara, but a synthesis of both. You would retain your personality, your memories, your essential self. But you would also possess knowledge and capabilities that no human has ever experienced. The first tractor beam locked onto the Meridian, and Marcus felt the ship's movement become sluggish as the Confederation forces began reeling them in. Time's up, Captain, Sarah called from the engineering station. Whatever we're going to do, it has to be now. Marcus looked into Zefkanor's alien eyes and saw not conquest or manipulation, but desperate hope. The last member of a dying race, offering to share everything they had learned in 2 millennia of civilization with a freight captain who had answered a simple request to come when needed. Do it, Marcus said. The neural interface process was unlike anything Marcus had ever experienced. Zefkanor placed his elongated hands on either side of Marcus's head, and, suddenly, the bridge of the Meridian exploded with information that his human brain should not have been able to process. He could see the ship's systems not as mechanical components but as living networks of energy and information. The Confederation fleet appeared in his consciousness as geometric patterns of threat and opportunity. Space itself became navigable not through conventional physics but through understanding of dimensional relationships that human science had barely begun to theorize. And, underneath it all, he felt the presence of Zefkanor's memories, the beauty of the Kithara homeworld before its destruction, the centuries of flight through hostile space, the desperate hope that somewhere in the galaxy they would find allies capable of standing against the Devourers. Captain? Sarah's voice seemed to come from very far away. Your biosigns are unusual. Marcus opened his eyes and realized that his perspective on reality had fundamentally changed. He could feel the Meridian's engines as extensions of his own nervous system, could sense the exact position and velocity of every ship in the Confederation fleet, could calculate escape routes through dimensional space that conventional navigation would consider impossible. Torres, he said, his voice carrying harmonics that hadn't been there before, prepare for emergency hyperspace transit. Sir, we're locked in tractor beams. Emergency transit could tear the ship apart. Marcus smiled, and, for the first time in his life, he understood exactly what it felt like to be more than human. Not with what I know now. The Meridian tore through the tractor beams as if they were made of paper, its modified engines creating dimensional distortions that sent shockwaves through the Confederation fleet. Marcus felt every system on his ship respond to his thoughts, the neural interface allowing him to pilot the vessel with precision that defied conventional physics. Behind them, Admiral Chen's fleet scrambled to respond to their impossible escape. Weapons fire lit up the space around the Meridian, but Marcus found himself anticipating each shot seconds before the enemy vessels fired. The Kithara knowledge flowing through his mind included tactical algorithms developed over thousands of years of warfare against the Devourers. How are we still alive? Torres asked, watching particle beams pass harmlessly around their ship. Probability prediction, Marcus replied, his voice still carrying those strange harmonics. The Kithara learned to read weapon patterns and energy signatures. Every shot has a mathematical certainty behind it. Elena watched him with growing concern. Marcus, are you still, you? The question made him pause. He could feel Zefkanor's presence in his mind, but it wasn't controlling him or overriding his thoughts. Instead, it was like having access to a vast library of knowledge and experience that complemented his human instincts and creativity. I'm still me, he said, but I'm also more than I was. The jump to hyperspace took them beyond the reach of the Confederation fleet, but Marcus knew their troubles were far from over. The neural link had shown him the full scope of the Devourer threat, and what he'd seen made Admiral Chen's compromised task force seem like a minor inconvenience. They emerged from hyperspace in the Kepler 1649 system, a remote location that Zefkanor's people had identified as suitable for establishing a hidden base. The system contained 3 rocky planets rich in rare minerals, orbiting a stable red dwarf star that would provide consistent energy. Captain, Lou announced, I'm detecting artificial structures on the second planet. Large-scale construction, but the architecture isn't human or matching any known alien designs. Marcus focused his enhanced senses on the planet below, and what he perceived made his blood run cold. The structures were massive, geometric patterns that seemed to twist space around them. They pulsed with energy signatures that felt fundamentally wrong, as if they violated basic laws of physics. "Devourers," Zefkanor said quietly. "They have already reached this system." "That's impossible," Elena protested. "You said they were 18 months away from human space." "We were mistaken about their rate of advance." Or, the alien's skin pattern shifted to deep purple, indicating extreme distress. "They have developed new capabilities since our escape from the galactic core." Sarah's voice crackled over the intercom from the engine room. "Captain, whatever those things are down there, they're affecting our systems. I'm showing power fluctuations across all networks." Marcus could feel it too, a subtle drain on the ship's energy systems that grew stronger as they remained in orbit. The Devourers weren't just consuming matter and energy from the planet below, they were drawing power from anything technological in the surrounding space. "We need to leave this system immediately," he decided. "Where?" Elena asked. "If the Devourers have reached this far, then every system in this region could be compromised." Before anyone could answer, the ship's sensors detected movement on the planet's surface. The geometric structures were shifting, reshaping themselves into new configurations. Within minutes, they had formed what could only be described as a massive launch platform. "They know we're here," Marcus realized. Objects began lifting off from the planet's surface, not ships in any conventional sense, but geometric forms that seemed to fold space around themselves as they moved. They accelerated toward the meridian at speeds that should have been impossible for objects of their apparent mass. "Defensive systems online," Torres reported. "Our weapons won't be effective against them," Zefkanor warned. "Devourers exist partially outside normal spacetime. Conventional energy weapons simply pass through them. Then, what do we fight them with?" The alien was quiet for a moment before responding. "With what makes humans unique among all the species we have encountered. Your capacity to adapt, to find solutions where none should exist, to fight against impossible odds through pure determination." The first Devourer construct reached weapons range and opened fire with energy that defied classification. The beams struck the Meridian's shields and began systematically draining them, converting the defensive energy into more of themselves. Marcus felt the attack through his neural link with the ship's systems, but something unexpected happened. Instead of being overwhelmed by the alien energy, his human mind began analyzing it, breaking down the incomprehensible patterns into components that he could understand and counter. "Elena," he called out, "I need you to reroute power from non-essential systems to the main deflector array. I think I can create an inverse frequency modulation that will disrupt their energy absorption." "That's impossible," she replied even as she began implementing his instructions. "You can't just invent new physics on the spot." "I'm not inventing anything," Marcus said, his hands moving across the control panels with inhuman speed. "I'm combining human intuition with Kithara knowledge to find solutions that neither species could develop alone." The deflector array reconfigured itself under Marcus's direction, creating an energy pattern that shouldn't have been possible with human technology. When he engaged the system, the Devourer constructs suddenly stopped their attack, their geometric forms flickering as if reality couldn't decide whether they existed or not. "It's working," Torres announced in amazement. "Their energy patterns are destabilizing." But the victory was temporary. More constructs were launching from the planet's surface, and these seemed to be adapting to Marcus's countermeasures even as they approached. "They learn," Zefkanor observed. "This is how they have consumed every other civilization they have encountered. Each defensive measure becomes obsolete within minutes." Marcus felt frustration building in his chest, but it was a uniquely human kind of frustration, one that demanded action rather than acceptance of defeat. The neural link amplified this emotion, feeding it through Kithara analytical systems until it became something new, a hybrid form of determination that combined human stubbornness with alien precision. "Then, we don't give them time to adapt," he decided. "We keep changing our approach faster than they can counter it." What followed was unlike any space battle in human history. Marcus fought the Devourers not with superior firepower, but with creativity and unpredictability. He constantly modified the ship's systems, creating new weapon configurations and defensive patterns faster than the enemy constructs could analyze them. When energy weapons proved ineffective, he used the ship's gravity manipulators to create spatial distortions. When the Devourers adapted to gravitational attacks, he began using the Meridian's cargo transporters as weapons, beaming chunks of asteroid directly into the geometric forms. Elena watched in fascination as Marcus fought beings that had destroyed civilizations across the galaxy using nothing but human creativity enhanced by alien knowledge. They've never faced anything like this before, she realized. Every other species they encountered probably had predictable military doctrine. Humans don't have doctrine, Sarah added over the intercom. We have stubbornness and spite and a really bad habit of doing things that should be impossible. The battle raged for over an hour, with Marcus constantly adapting his tactics as the Devourers tried to counter each new approach. But, gradually, the tide began to turn. The constructs were becoming less coordinated, their attacks more desperate as their analytical systems were overwhelmed by the sheer unpredictability of human combat methods. Finally, Marcus detected something that changed everything. The geometric structures on the planet's surface were beginning to destabilize, their energy patterns becoming chaotic as the orbital battle interfered with their coordination networks. They're linked, he realized. The constructs, the planetary structures, they're all part of one massive entity. And we've been feeding it contradictory data faster than it can process. Zefkanor's eyes widened with understanding. Captain, if you could create a feedback loop in their system. Already on it, Marcus replied, his fingers dancing across the control panels. Elena, I need maximum power to the communications array. We're going to send them a message they'll never forget. What kind of message? Marcus smiled, and in that expression was all the fierce joy that humans felt when facing impossible odds. Every piece of human art, literature, music, and scientific data in our computer banks. All of it transmitted simultaneously on frequencies designed to integrate with their analytical systems. That's... Elena paused, understanding dawning on her face. That's either brilliant or completely insane. Sometimes the difference is irrelevant. The transmission began, flooding the Devourer network with the collected creativity of human civilization. Poetry and mathematical theorems, symphonies and quantum physics equations, ancient myths and cutting-edge research, all delivered in a chaotic stream that defied every pattern recognition system the Devourers had developed. The effect was immediate and devastating. The constructs in space began spinning out of control, their geometric forms shifting rapidly between incompatible configurations. On the planet's surface, the massive structures started collapsing as their coordination networks overloaded. The feedback loop is cascading through their entire network, Zefkanor reported with something approaching awe. Captain, you have achieved something that no other species has managed in 2,000 years of Devourer expansion. What's that? You have confused them into submission. The Devourer presence in the Kepler 1649 system collapsed within minutes, the geometric constructs dissolving into component energy that dispersed harmlessly into space. The planet's surface showed only empty craters where the massive structures had once stood. But Marcus felt no satisfaction in the victory. Through his neural link with Zefkanor, he could perceive the vast scope of Devourer expansion across the galaxy. What they had accomplished here was significant, but it was only one small victory against an enemy that controlled thousands of systems. This was just a scouting force, he realized. The main Devourer fleet is still 18 months away, and now they'll be prepared for human tactics. Elena moved to stand beside him at the command station. Then, we have 18 months to prepare a reception committee. We? She gestured around the bridge at his crew, all of whom had remained at their stations throughout the impossible battle. Did you think you were the only one who could change? Marcus, what you did here today proved that humans and Kythera working together can achieve things that neither species could accomplish alone. Sarah's voice came over the intercom. Captain, I've been monitoring the Kythera modifications to our systems. With their permission, I think I can integrate their technology with human engineering principles. We could build ships that combine the best of both civilizations. Torres looked up from her station. And I've been analyzing their communication protocols. Sir, we could establish a network that would allow real-time coordination between human and Kythera forces across multiple systems. Lou nodded from navigation. The jump calculations they use are incredible. With human pilots using Kythera navigation technology, we could move fleets faster and more precisely than anyone has ever managed. Marcus felt a strange emotion welling up inside him, hope mixed with determination and touched with the fierce protectiveness that humans felt for their own. But it was expanded now, encompassing not just humanity but the Kythera refugees who had entrusted their survival to a freight captain who had answered a simple call for help. Zefkanor, he said, how many systems would we need to establish a proper defensive network? At minimum, 12. Positioned strategically along the approaches to human space, with manufacturing facilities capable of producing hybrid vessels and training centers for joint human Kythera crews. And how many volunteers would we need? Elena smiled. Marcus, once word gets out about what happened here today, about what's possible when humans and Kythera work together, you won't have to worry about finding volunteers. The problem will be selecting the right people from everyone who wants to join. Marcus looked out at the stars visible through the bridge viewport, seeing them differently now than he had just days ago. Each point of light represented possibilities, worlds that could become strongholds, species that might join their alliance, resources that could be developed to stand against the coming darkness. 3 months later, Marcus stood on the observation deck of the new Meridian, watching construction crews put finishing touches on the orbital shipyards above Kepler 442c. The original research station had been expanded into a massive facility that served as headquarters for what was becoming known as the Alliance of Free Worlds. Human engineers worked alongside Kythera scientists to design vessels that incorporated the best technologies of both civilizations. The ships that emerged from their collaboration were unlike anything seen before, sleek, powerful, and capable of tactics that would have been impossible with conventional technology. Elena joined him at the observation window, her appearance changed by months of working with Kythera biotechnology. Her eyes now reflected light in subtle patterns, and her movements had gained the fluid grace characteristic of human Kythera hybrids. The first squadron of hybrid vessels will be ready for deployment next week, she reported. 12 ships, each crewed by teams that have undergone the neural interface process. They'll be able to coordinate with mechanical precision while maintaining human creativity. Any word from the Confederation? Marcus asked. Admiral Chen's task force never returned to human space. Deep space monitoring stations detected Devourer signatures in the systems where they were last seen. Elena's expression grew sad. We may have been the last humans to see them before they were consumed. Marcus felt a familiar pang of regret. He still wondered sometimes if there had been another way, some choice that could have saved both the Alliance mission and the Confederation forces. But the neural link with Zefkanor carried the memories of 100 other species that had been consumed while trying to find diplomatic solutions to the Devourer threat. How many worlds have joined the Alliance now? He asked. 47 human colonies have declared independence from the Confederation and requested membership. 18 non-human species have made contact through Kythera diplomatic channels. And we've received messages from resistance groups in 12 systems that have already been partially consumed by Devourers. The Confederation government's response? Elena's smile was grim. They've declared us a terrorist organization and placed bounties on our heads. They're convinced we're an alien invasion force using human traitors to weaken Earth's defenses. Maybe they're not entirely wrong, Marcus said quietly. About what? About us not being entirely human anymore. Elena considered this. Marcus, do you regret answering my call that night? Do you wish you'd stayed a freight captain running supplies between colonies? Marcus thought about the question seriously. The neural interface had changed him in ways that were still becoming apparent. He could perceive dimensional relationships that pure humans couldn't understand, could coordinate with ship systems on levels that bordered on telepathy, could see tactical solutions to problems that would have been impossible before his transformation. But he was also responsible for the deaths of thousands of Confederation personnel who had been consumed by Devourers while under alien influence. He was leading a rebellion against human authority that could fracture the species at the worst possible time. And, in 15 months, when the main Devourer fleet arrived, everything he had built might prove insufficient to save even a fraction of galactic civilization. I regret that it was necessary, he said finally. But, I don't regret making the choice. Torres's voice crackled over the intercom. Captain, we're receiving a priority transmission from the Advanced Reconnaissance Fleet. It's Admiral Singh. Admiral Priya Singh had been one of the first Confederation officers to openly join the Alliance after witnessing a Devourer attack on the Procyon system. Her defection had brought 12 ships and over 4,000 personnel to their cause, along with legitimacy that had encouraged other military units to switch sides. Put her through, Marcus ordered. Singh's image appeared on the observation deck's communication screen. Her expression was tense, but Marcus could see excitement underlying her concern. Captain Kane, she began, I'm transmitting from the edge of the Perseus Arm. My reconnaissance force has made contact with survivors from the Centauri Republic. Their capital system was attacked by Devourers 8 months ago, but they managed to evacuate their population using technology similar to what we've developed. Marcus felt hope surge through the neural link he maintained with Sefkanor. Are you saying other human groups have independently developed hybrid technologies? Not just humans, Singh replied. We've found evidence of a multi-species alliance operating in the Outer Rim. They call themselves the Last Stand Coalition, and, according to the Centauri survivors, they've been successfully defending against Devourer incursions for over a year. Elena grabbed Marcus's arm. If there are other groups fighting back, if we can coordinate our efforts. The Centauri are requesting immediate assistance, Singh continued. They have intelligence on Devourer fleet movements, including the location of what they believe is a central coordination facility. Captain, they think we might be able to strike directly at the source. Marcus felt the familiar combination of human determination and Kithara analytical precision flowing through his enhanced consciousness. The impossible was becoming possible, one step at a time. Admiral Singh, he ordered, return to base immediately with the Centauri representatives. We're going to need every ship, every ally, and every crazy idea we can manage. As Singh's transmission ended, Marcus looked out at the bustling orbital facility that had grown from Elena's simple request for help. Human and Kithara technicians worked side by side, developing weapons and defenses that neither species could have created alone. Ships launched regularly on missions to contact potential allies and establish new bases throughout the galaxy. Elena, he said, do you think we can actually win this? She followed his gaze to where a squadron of hybrid fighters was conducting training exercises, their pilots linked by neural interfaces that allowed them to move in perfect coordination while maintaining individual creativity. I think we can do something that no other species has managed in 2,000 years, she replied. We can make the Devourers regret picking a fight with humanity. Marcus smiled, feeling the fierce satisfaction that came from facing impossible odds with friends who were willing to share the burden. Answering Elena's call had cost him his old life, his simple existence as a freight captain, and, possibly his pure humanity. But, it had given him something more valuable than any of those things, the chance to stand against the darkness and prove that some things were worth fighting for, even when victory seemed impossible. In the distance, another squadron of hybrid ships prepared for deployment to the Outer Rim, carrying human crews enhanced with Kithara technology to join the growing alliance of species determined to survive. And, somewhere in the neural link that connected him to 47 refugee aliens and a growing network of hybrid humans, Marcus felt something that the Devourers had never encountered in 2 millennia of conquest. He felt hope backed by the absolute refusal to surrender that made humans unique among all the species of the galaxy.